Hello, health seekers. Welcome to the Keto Pro podcast with myself, Richard Smith. Today, I'm joined by a very good friend of mine in the form of Mikey Davis. Mikey is an incredible endurance athlete. And we're going to get into his story now. Mikey, welcome on board.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. I think that's the first time you've ever called me by my full name.
We don't normally meet in a setting, do we?
No, very true. It's and being so close together, it would have been good if we had the opportunity to have recorded a podcast in the same place. Have you seen how some of the people, like Joe Rogan across the side, one side of the table? If only we had the technology in the room. Never mind, we'll work up to that on the next one. But this will have to suffice for now. This will have to suffice.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mike, thanks for this. We've been looking forward to getting you on for this one for a long time. I think you've got an incredible story. Can we start by introducing yourself, who you are, what you do, and maybe a little bit about, who you used to be in regards to diet and things, and I'll start throwing some questions your way.
Yeah, of course. So, I used to eat a predominantly plant-based diet. And I've always been into exercise and triathlon lately. So, it must be going back about 2-3 years possibly now when I met you. And I met Rich through chiropractic. So I'm a chiropractor, and I was treating Rich because he was starting running and he was having a few niggles. So that's what got me on the path. And he invited me to come along and come to one of his talks that he did. So he started to explain a little bit about what he'd done, and I thought, this doesn't sound good, because what I was doing was the complete opposite. I was getting decent results. I was getting some really good, strong races in, finishing quite high up in my categories in most of them. So I thought what I was doing was optimal. So when he told me to do the complete opposite, it was a bit of a shock. But then, having gone to his talk and discovering what he knows about the ketogenic, low-carb lifestyle, it was only fair to give it a shot. So on that day, I bought a few products off him. Went home and just started trying it with my training. But I was always under the influence that you needed to take a lot of carbohydrates for your performance, which now I think is the complete opposite, because I've managed to get my performance to another level from taking the carbohydrates out. So yeah, from that day of his talk onwards, I just started trialing the lifestyle. I'm doing some of my sessions without carbs, some of them with, and started to add in a few things like eggs, a little bit of fish to the diet, and removing some of the vegetables and the carbohydrates. Still feeling a little bit unsure, because you hear the complete opposite from our community. You hear the complete opposite. You're told to consume a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of oats, a lot of rice, pasta, potatoes, and then sugary drinks then alongside your training to get the best performance out of it. But yeah, so that's how I started. And then from there, just gradually, I grew into sort of using less and less carbs for more of the sessions, and lo and behold, getting better results. So that's how the journey started for me.
Yeah, fantastic. And an incredible journey, because just to let people know about what you do, you're a triathlete. You compete in triathlons, duathlons, and more impressively, Ironman. Now, for those who don't know what an Ironman is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but it's a 2.4-mile swim followed by a 112-mile bike ride, followed by a marathon, which is, that's incredible in itself. And kudos to anyone who completes an Ironman. But the allotted time for a completion, I think, is 17 hours, isn't it? If you come in under 17 hours. Yeah. So it's, but obviously, that takes an awful lot of training. Just to do this is an impressive feat anyway. To achieve this without any carbohydrate just goes against absolutely everything that we're told from the athletic performance community, even just to finish an event on zero carb or low carb. But then, the quicker the time, the more impressive this is, isn't it? And I think from my experience with, the people that I know and worked with, a pretty good Ironman time is probably 11 hours, for an amateur, 11, 12 hours, depending on the course. And recently, you've taken the Welsh record in the Kona Ironman World Championships, which is absolutely incredible. So you were now the fastest Welshman ever to complete the Kona Ironman World Championships, which is an Ironman competition that you can't just enter. You need to be invited. You need to qualify. Is that right?
Yeah.
So, you need to earn your place to be there. And you've recently taken that title, which is absolutely incredible. And congratulations on that. I think what was your time?
9 hours, 11 minutes.
9 hours, 11, and it's,
the previous best time that I'd done in an Ironman distance was 10 hours, 22.
So well over.
Yeah. And that was when I was just starting to come into the low carb lifestyle.
Yeah. So, I mean, that in itself should dismiss any misconceptions that, you can't be low carb. And I think it's fair to say that, I remember when we were talking in the early days, and as you say, you were super fit and healthy. You were vegan, I think it's fair to say. You were competing and performing at a high standard as an amateur, but never finishing in. I remember we had the conversation. You always do really well, but you've never finished in the top 3. And then from my memory is that, you gravitated into this through a ketogenic sort of pathway. So increasing fats, increasing, your proteins. You always consumed a healthy lifestyle prior to this, though, wasn't it? As far as a vegan goes, it was pretty healthy.
Yeah, it was a low processed diet. So I didn't eat any processed foods as such. I ate, as healthy as you could being a vegan. Yeah, I used to eat a little bit of the replacement products they do, but it was predominantly, non-processed foods, pretty healthy as far as it goes. But yeah, obviously there's a lot more to come.
Yeah. So, I mean, but it's, we see and hear from people who thrive being a vegan, and you were one of these people. You were thriving, which means that it's obviously healthier to live the way that you were living then than it was maybe prior to your days of being a vegan. And I think, is it fair to say that's probably because of the lack of the processed foods and you're eating real food?
Yeah, definitely.
So, from off the back of that, I remember, you gravitated into becoming ketogenic, and then I think it was a year of being keto, and now you're predominantly carnivore. Is that fair to say you're predominantly more towards meat-based?
Yeah, I'd say so. I eat very little carbs now. It is predominantly meat-based, yeah.
Fantastic.
Eggs, a little bit of Greek yogurt here and there. Some things that take you off. There's a little bit of carbs in it. So not completely strict, but yeah, I'd say that's a fair claim.
You mentioned the Greek yogurt, and we had a conversation on Wednesday. And it's how much Greek yogurt do you have, Mike?
Oh, just 3 tablespoons, perhaps. A little bit of protein powder in there. Nothing like you.
So that's hardly a lot of Greek yogurt, So your treat, or you straying from a strict carnivore lifestyle, is having 3 tablespoons.
Yeah. So not much really. Yeah, it's fueled by fats and proteins.
Of course it is. And if 3 tablespoons of Greek yogurt is all you have to worry about, then there's not an awful lot to worry about, is there?
No.
But I remember this year, because competing in the World Championships isn't the only thing that you've done. You competed early in the season in a duathlon, which you did really well in a short, a sprint duathlon. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that one first?
That was like early season opener kind of race to see where the fitness was. and having trial in the new lifestyle, it was more of a thing of, right, how am I going to perform without using carbs? So it was a bit of a tester early in the year. So we went in, fasted into that race. So no food at all before the race, which is something I've never done before. And one of Richard's keto bombs that he supplies before the race, just 30 minutes before, there we go, which is, it has BHB in there, ketones for the body. So it was just one of those keto bombs before the race. It was still a bit dubious where I was going to go because I'd never tried it. And yeah, coming in fourth place, I think, just off the podium, a few seconds off, so nothing much, which got me realizing that I could do these races without any carbohydrates at all. And running almost, well, I think it was a PB before the bike, and then not far off a PB running off the bike as well. So all areas of my triathlon got better. So I knew that I was doing the right thing. So that was in March. And off the back of that, then it was a case of building up to the half Ironman European Championships, which was in Portugal in June. So after that race, then it was more carrying on with it. And like all the time you're evolving, trying to experiment how little carb you can use to sort of still get the performance outcomes. But in the duathlon, it was no carb use at all. So I knew it was possible.
Yeah, which is incredible because, I mean, that that duathlon was an incredibly tough and competitive duathlon. And it was a sprint duathlon, which is something that you were not specialized in. I mean, you're not a sprint athlete. So this was way too short for you. And to be just a few seconds off finishing in the top 3 was incredible anyway. And it wasn't a race that you were competing in per se. It was just to test the principle, wasn't it? But off the back of that, you went on to compete then in the Ironman 70.3 European Championships. How did you get on in that one?
So it got even better, yeah. As the distance goes up, it suits me more, being an endurance athlete. So half Ironman distance, a lot longer than the sprint duathlon. So we were out there for 4 hours, 11 minutes, my time in that one. And I finished first place in my category. I think it was like 7th overall out of all the people that entered it. For Great Britain, I was racing against all other athletes from Europe. So the European Championships, yeah, is another one you've got to be invited to go to. So you can't just sign up to it. You have to be within the top % of your age category to get a shot of racing it. So it was all the best athletes from different countries around Europe. Yeah, that was another PB. That was my PB over that distance. Come down about 10, 11 minutes from the year before, which is quite a lot over a half Ironman. And yeah, it was a little bit of carb used in that one, but it was very low carb considered in our community. When there's boys pushing 120 grams of carbohydrates an hour through the gut, I think I took 60 grams an hour for that one on the bike. And then I don't think I took carbs at all on the run. So again, a low carb compared to what most people are used to, but still got my personal best again. So again, it was just proven to me that I could do these races without using little carbs. So
yeah, which is incredible. Yeah. I mean, let's take stock of that a second. You were an incredible athlete as a vegan. Never finishing in the top 3. A year and a bit of going low carb ketogenic. You not only placed in the top 3, but you won the European Championship. So you went from not placing in local comps to becoming number 1 in Europe in your category. I mean, that's pretty impressive. I think to me, I mean, that's absolutely incredible. That difference is night and day. Now you mentioned there that you used some carb, and what many would say from the carb community is, you've taken carb and you've achieved that, but all of your training is done on 0 carb. All of your training is done fasted. You don't just romp up on a competition, put some carb in, and it miraculously allows you to improve your running pace and your power on the bike and all this. It's and this I think this is where the misconception is, and we can get into this as we go. But people think that when you live a ketogenic or carnivore-based lifestyle, that you can't consume carb. They think it's black and white, and this isn't the case. I personally think that we can compete at the highest level without any carb at all. But I also believe that an incredible endurance athlete who is metabolically flexible can consume carbohydrate and utilize it more efficiently than a carbohydrate athlete. I believe that putting the right amount in won't cause any problems, and that's the question that we need to look at. Is it's ticking all the bases. I've done all my training on zero carb, I'm keto, I'm fat adapted, and I'm keto adapted, and they are different things, and we can get into this. I'm going to compete in a race. Now, shall I put carb in? Well, the question is, for most people, is it going to improve my performance? But for us, I think it was more, well, is it going to cause a problem? Well, no, it's not, because we're putting so little in. We are metabolically flexible. It's not going to cause a problem. Number two, is it going to improve performance? Well, we don't know, but it's not going to cause any problems. So why not put a little bit in? And, that's that's the decision that we decided to take. And I think it's fair to say that we're both super curious as to see whether, that would have been achieved without any carb at all. But I mean, it doesn't matter because people are missing the point. All of that training building up to this has been on fat adaptation and keto adaptation. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what you were saying. It's not going to affect your race too much if you put it in. So if it gives you that psychological advantage, then put a little bit in. That's the only reason why. Because as you said, all the training was done in a no carb state. I wasn't using carbs before, during, or after.
Yeah.
I knew I could perform on it, but there was that element of doubt because everybody in the community you listen to everyone is saying to consume high levels of carbohydrate. You've got them telling you to do this, and then we've got our camp then, which is saying not to. And I trusted it, trusted the process. It was just more, as you said, if it's not going to affect the performance too much, then why not chuck it in? Because I've always used it before.
Yeah.
And you have other people in your year, like it is hard to stay strong and just do what you believe is going to work. Because you get off track by things other people say. It happens with everything, doesn't it?
It does. And, even in our community now, we understand how beneficial saturated fats are. Yet, you and I regularly have conversations about saturated fats and cholesterol. And, we had a conversation about bacon recently and nitrates. And so even though, we're in the community and we get it, it's this constant barragement of these external voices that make us constantly question things, because it's like we seem to be one person in a room full of people saying the opposite. And it takes a strong person to drown out that noise and not listen to it. And I saw a study recently in regards to people in certain situations, and when everybody else does the opposite, that person changes what they do because they think, well, I must be wrong. And that's how powerful I think the human psyche is in regards to being in situations and maybe making decisions, or at least questioning things. But again, I think it's fair to say that we both know that you could complete an entire Ironman in an incredibly fast time on zero carb. The question would be, would the time be as fast? So, I mean, the European Championship, for example, you came in at 9 hours 11. Now, if you would try, the goal was sub 9, wasn't it? This is what we went with. And we can get into the reasons and things why we didn't achieve this. But a Welsh record, is incredible. That's an incredible feat. But if we'd gone into this and we decided to go in on zero carb, the question always would have been, was it because we didn't put a little bit of carb in? Do you know what I mean? But because we've tried that, I mean, that probably gives us the scope moving forward. We've got a benchmark and a gauge to work off. And maybe we can push forward that and try to achieve equal or better. I think, if there's no doubt that, you've competed and completed half Ironman. And we both work with athletes who have completed Ironman in like 10 hours, a good friend of ours. Sandy.
That's what that's what we're trying to create, isn't it? Like a blueprint, because there's nothing out there in terms of coaching that you can follow. You look it up online, you can't find anything on athletes competing an Ironman in, fast times, say under 10 hours, on around 9 hours. You can't find any information from people who are doing this and talking about it. So it's unknown for us, really, until it's done. And I know it can be done, but it's just having that blueprint to follow, which you have when it comes to carbs. Everyone says add 120 grams to your bottle, or even I've heard 180 now per hour, which I think is ludicrous. And I don't know how the gut can manage that level of carbohydrates, and then you've got to train your gut to do it. So it's obviously not good for the gut. Yeah. And like all this information is out there that pro athletes are pushing to follow. Whether they do this or not, who knows? But then we're all trying to follow their advice they're giving us. But there's none of this advice when it comes to low carb and keto. So we are literally walking our own path.
It is. We are, pioneers, I guess. And look, I would also question whether some of these elite athletes are indeed, ketogenic and fat adapted. And we know.
Well, I think there's no doubt they are. I've got no doubt in my mind that they are ketogenic and fat adapted.
Yeah. So, I agree. I move in certain circles that allow me access to pieces of information. And that information would lead me to believe that at least some of these elite athletes in every arena that I know of work this way. Unfortunately, they are governed by. We had this conversation on Wednesday, actually, because you and I, train together. Well, I say train together. I mean, you do your run, and I fight for my life to keep up with you. But
you do pretty good. You do pretty good.
Chipping away.
Yeah.
But we were having this conversation about how the prize money and the sponsorship, isn't brilliant, and you need to be a good athlete. And if a sugar company, for example, were to turn up and offer an athlete who is struggling for money, and offer them money for sponsorship, I wouldn't blame them to take that sponsorship because it pays them to do what they love to do. People see elite athletes all over the world and they think that they're absolutely minted. Only the top, percent maybe of these elite athletes in any sport are actually earning money, and they're earning money from their sponsorship. So you can't blame them for taking sponsorship because, to be an elite athlete, I mean, you work full time. You try to train, amongst, an in-between work. These elite athletes that's all they do. That's all they do. They're paid to train constantly. So in order to do that, you need money. So if a sugar company were to turn up and offer that athlete X amount of money, I can't blame them for taking it. I think, somebody paying you to do something that you love to do, that's incredible. And I don't hold that against the athlete, but the athlete in that situation cannot then come out and say that they don't use the product that they're being sponsored to say. And in there lies the conflict of interest. And I think that's the problem. You mentioned that these elite athletes are doing 120, 160, 180 grams of carbs an hour, which is ridiculous. And I can't understand. I don't believe that. But then even if it were true, and I keep coming back to my days of bodybuilding. I used to look at what the top bodybuilders in the world were doing. And I would try to follow that protocol, but it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work because I'm not a top bodybuilder in the world. I was an amateur. So what they are doing doesn't equate to what I need to do because you need to build up to these things. So you can't just take a blueprint from an elite athlete and give it to an amateur. It doesn't work that way. These things need to be, learned, and these lessons need to be earned. We make mistakes. We overtrain. I couldn't just start training an elite. I couldn't do your plan. I couldn't start training your plan tomorrow because by the end of the week I'd be dead. And there's no way that I could physically and mechanically do the work that you do. Yeah. So if that's the case in regards to the training side, then the same is true when it comes to every other aspect, nutrition and supplementation. It doesn't mean just because this athlete says that they're consuming X amount of carb that the amateur athlete needs to do this. But it's super frustrating, isn't it? When I know that you've posted recently, on social that the incredible achievements and had a lot of attention from friends and family, a lot of, congratulations. And then when you did a post recently to say, this is the lifestyle that I follow, it was like a tumbleweed, nobody wanted to know. And it's like,
nobody seems to be show interest at that point in time.
And it baffles me. I mean, this to me is the magic elixir.
I was going to, but we do triathlon, exercise, whatever it is, running, biking, swimming, any weights, you do it for your health and fitness. So in order to do that, why would you want to put something in your body that's not healthy to fuel your workouts when you don't need it? So that's what got me thinking. I was consuming so much carbohydrates with all this training I was doing. Then I was like, hang on, is there another way to doing this? Because I don't want to keep consuming sugar. I know sugar is bad for the body. It causes type 2 diabetes. It's not, I know a little bit about health, and I know that sugar is not healthy. So I was thinking, I'm doing these exercises, activity for my health and fitness, and at the same time, I'm consuming these products that are bad for my health. So it got me in a bit of a conflict, and I thought, can I do this without sugar? And then, lo and behold, met you and changed the game a little bit.
Game changer. Changer. Love it. Yeah, you're right. And you've just made a really important point there that many people would look at carbohydrate and sugar as being two different things, but they are in fact one and the same. As you say, carbohydrate breaks down into glucose, and this is what fuels, that athlete is a process of glycolysis, or being fueled by sugar, glucose. Whereas the opposite is true for yourself and myself. We're fueled by ketones, which we get from fat. But you're right. It's, a bowl of muesli or a bowl of pasta. It's still glucose. It's still sugar. It doesn't matter where it comes from. It all breaks down, fructose, so on and so forth. It all breaks down into glucose. So I think that's an important point. We're trying to be fit and healthy, yet we're consuming silly amounts of sugar on a daily basis. And sugar causes glycation and oxidative stress. And glycation is when cells become sticky and they basically start causing problems in the body because they start binding to things that they shouldn't. And this is called a process called glycation. So think of Velcro, for example. And this is possibly a contributor to things like cardiovascular disease. And they become oxidized, because glucose is a toxin to the body. We need a certain amount of glucose in the body. But the reason that we store glucose into the muscle as glycogen is because that's your body's mechanism to save your life. Because excess amount of glucose in the blood is a poison. So the body removes the glucose from the blood into the muscle in order to save your life. And what do we do as athletes? We just take loads and loads of glucose. Blood glucose goes up. Insulin then pulls it out into the muscle, and we think that we're allowing the body to store this energy in the form of glycogen, which is counterintuitive to racing, by the way, because it's all to do with power to weight. And you see people who will carb load for a marathon the night before. That person could be carrying anywhere between 5 to 7 pounds of excess body weight the next day, because for every 1 gram of glucose that we store as glycogen, the body holds on to 3 grams of water. So to carb up a night before a race, your body's carrying more weight. If I were to give that to someone who was running a marathon and wanted a PB and it was full of water, and that's only half, so that would be 500 ml, which is like half a kilogram. If I give that to somebody and said, carry this on your marathon when you're aiming for a PB, they tell me to get on my bike. Yet this is what they're doing when they put the carb in. It just doesn't make sense, does it?
No. That's when it stopped for me. I was doing that before. I was carb loading for my races. Every time, dumping loads of carbs in, pizzas, pasta the night before. And since I've been having all my PBs, I haven't been doing that at all. Like, I don't even have... I may, a little bit of white rice sometimes is the carb I use if I'm going to. But, hardly anything, the night before, nothing in the morning. So I don't carb load at all. Yeah. And it was when you told me about Professor Tim Noakes, about the guy who actually wrote the book on carbohydrate loading, come out and said that all the stuff he put in there was wrong. He actually publicly admitted this. And he's, come out and really said sorry, isn't he, for giving misinformation about it. Yeah. But everyone in the local clubs is still doing it, despite the guy who founded carb loading and said that it doesn't work anymore and it's not needed.
Yeah.
So yeah, what would it take for people to open their eyes? I don't know.
So, I mean, in that instance, what is it that is causing people to do that? Is it because they truly believe that the athletes, they need it as an athlete? Because as you say, the guy that invented carb loading is now saying, look, I was wrong. He
Mm-hmm.
believed that the information he published at the time was right to what he was studying, but he never studied the detrimental impacts and the effect of fat. So that was never tested. Now that he's done those things, Professor Noakes realized that fat is way more efficient at producing energy. And in fact, Professor Noakes himself is an endurance athlete, run hundreds of marathons, and despite being super active, developed type 2 diabetes. And that was the switch, the flicking of the switch, if you like, that led him down the path to becoming a pioneer in the low-carb ketogenic world. And reversing his position on high carbohydrate diets. But everybody else seems to do it. Do you know what I think it is? I think it's addiction. I think,
So good.
yeah, I think people don't want to give up their drug of choice. And sugar is a drug, make no bones, but we know it's highly addictive. Some studies with rodents, have actually shown that it's equally as addictive to, and sometimes more addictive than, things like cocaine and heroin. There was a study where they fed rats and got them addicted to heroin, cocaine, and sugar, and then put them into a maze, and they would fight and work harder to find the sugar than they would to find the drugs. And that's
All, isn't it?
Again, this is animals, so we can't make that comparison 100% because it is a rat study, but that's pretty compelling stuff. And I'm addicted to sugar, and I know that I'm a sugar addict, and it took me an awful long time to come away from it. So that's what I think it is. I think these people just don't want, it's as if it's like a heroin addict, and you're trying to get them to reduce the amount of heroin that they're consuming. They're not going to want to do that easily. They're going to make every excuse they can to keep it in, and it's a shame because, as you say, this overload of carbohydrate is detrimental. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it's this, or do you think it's the constant pursuit of wanting to be number one?
Well, yeah, just the consumption of it. I think people are addicted to it personally, and like in our community, I can't blame them to an extent because they are getting that information from other people who are professionals. So they're getting told that they need to consume these carbohydrates, which confirms their opinion on it.
Yeah.
In the wrong way. It just reassures them they're doing the right thing by carbohydrate loading and taking all these gels and carbohydrate drinks in their training. They're only listening to the people who are preaching these things, which I think is wrong. But yeah, so it gives them that green light to carry on doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it does. It does, and to me, this is why I think your journey is incredible and inspirational. I remember I came to see you because I just started running. I was having lower back issues, so I came to see you. We had a few sessions together, and you fixed my back from my bodybuilding days. At that time, I couldn't even run 1.5K, if you remember, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Anyway, which was crazy. My
You're
first,
pretty good now, I gotta say.
it's. I don't, same as you. I don't think I'll ever be happy. I'm not a runner, and I don't think I'll ever. For me, the juice is never going to be worth a squeeze in regards to. I'm never going to be a runner. I'm never going to be a triathlete. But my first 5K time after I managed to get past 1.5K was 42 minutes, and now it's around 17. Which that's not too shabby for a non-runner.
No.
But it just goes to show how powerful the lifestyle is, because there are so many people within the running community who have been running for a long, long time, who never reach those sorts of times, and it's definitely, I don't put the training in. I mean, you know this more than anyone. I run like once a week, twice a week if I'm lucky. What do I do? Like 6 miles, 10 miles in a week. And runners will do
Yeah, it
60.
doesn't warrant the times you can do in a 5, 10K. Your training doesn't warrant that. So you're obviously doing something different, which is working. Because if you run a little bit more, and you get even quicker again. But running once a week or twice a week, how can you run a 17-minute 5K? That would take a hell of a lot of training for most people to achieve. But there's obviously something in possibly, not consuming carbohydrates before you do it.
Yeah,
Doing
who
it in the
knows?
fastest. It must, it must be a bit of a sort of biohack there, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree, and I think this is what allows me to do those things. But it'll be interesting to see, because you're working with me now on a goal for next year, which is I'm aiming for a sub 3 hour marathon. Look, I don't know if it's even possible because I haven't been running that long, and that's not too shabby, a sub 3 hours. Personally, I don't think that I'll get to that, but I'm going to see how close I can get to it.
Well,
But
it's kind of like the target for me of setting sub 9. I
yeah,
knew I would be pushed, especially trying to do it in Kona. If you were trying to do a sub 9 Ironman, you would not aim to do it in Kona.
yeah,
And I knew that. I knew that when I signed up. Um, but that makes me train even harder, having that goal of 9 hours to chase. Makes me work that bit harder in training. So I think setting a goal which is a little bit unrealistic can sometimes get the most out of yourself.
I
Because
agree.
having not done a sub 9, I knew that 9:13 was the Welsh record to fall back on. And then that was not easy. It was very hard to do, but it still gave me that cushion then to fall back on that. And that's what sub 3 would be for you, isn't it? Trying to
Yeah.
set that crazy goal and just to roll the dice and have a go at it.
Yeah, I agree. But I think the interesting thing that with you and the World Championship is that had that been on a course with less humidity and a lower temperature, I think you would have achieved it, and I think you would have done it not comfortably, but I think you would have been well under. And I genuinely believe that because the heat and the humidity out there was extreme, wasn't it? So maybe that's a goal for one day in the future. Um, Mike, conscious of your time, a couple of other things that I wanted to touch base on is I remember when we had a talk in the early days because you were a vegan at the time and you were what I'd call as a healthy vegan. But I remember you saying to me that something wasn't quite right. You were fit and healthy, you were achieving these things, but you couldn't put your finger on it, but something wasn't quite right. And is it safe to say that you began maybe to question the dietary choices and maybe whether it was optimal because you saw you were thriving, you were what I'd call an elite athlete through living a lifestyle that I would deem to be suboptimal. That said, it's healthier than consuming loads of processed foods. So you were achieving incredible things, but I remember you saying something wasn't quite right, and you were open to trying new things. And I remember, we had the conversation at the end of that presentation that you kindly came to, and for me, that's why I've got so much respect for you. You were an incredible athlete, living a lifestyle that everybody else is telling you was super healthy. Yet you opened your eyes, you took on board information from the opposing side, if you like.
Yeah.
Went away, analyzed that information, thought it through, and then you made a big decision because the reason I think most people don't gravitate down to this is because they are carb athletes, whether they're vegan, vegetarian, or whatever, but they're consuming lots of carbohydrates. They're achieving these things. They're fit and healthy. So compared to the average person on the high street, they look fit and healthy, and they are fit and healthy. They're running incredible times. They're doing these incredible things. So to that person, for you and I to say to them, well, if you took carb out, you'd be better. This is where they just like, no, because
Yeah.
look at what I've achieved by consuming these
Yeah.
carbs. And for most people, that is the crux because it's like, well, eating carb is what got me to where I am now. But this is where, like, I've got so much respect for you because you were well above most of these athletes. You were an elite athlete anyway, in my opinion. And to take a step back and think, I'm going to try something that could slow my progress down, could even stop my progress dead in the water. I've got a lot to lose because I'm a good athlete. But you know what? I've listened to the information. I haven't just dismissed it. I've taken it on board, and I'm going to give it a try. And you know, you and I had a chat, and you know, we basically said, look, there is an adaptation period. You know, the switch isn't going to flick overnight. And look, hey presto, a year or two later, you know, you're number one in Europe. For me, I mean, that's incredible. It's so I've got so much respect for you in regards to that. I think what an inspiration, and I just hope that others, you know, will follow suit with that, because it's not just about athletic performance; it is about health and well-being also, isn't it? You know, but yeah, it's Have you got anything to add on the back of that? Am I correct in everything I've just said, or?
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely, because we've wanted to do a podcast like this for a long time, haven't we? But I've always delayed it and thought, no, I don't know if I want to do it, blah, blah, blah. But I've always thought that I need to get results first to show that it works for me. That was the way that I wanted to come on the podcast, was getting some results with it first, and then having something to talk about, because until you get results with it, nobody's going to really listen, are they? But now I've got these kind of personal bests under my belt, and got the Welsh record in Kona. Had PBs in the 5, 10K, half marathon, half Ironman, full Ironman, PBs all over the board. I now know that it works, so it's not, and I know what I'm saying is the truth. I'm not lying about anything. I'm not using carbohydrates anymore for a lot, you know, most of the workouts and stuff. Out in Kona, a little bit of carbs was used, but as Richard said, you know, was that just to psychologically put my mind at rest? Because if I was doing it and wasn't getting the results I wanted, I might have been like, oh, what if I'd used carbs? Would I be better? So, yeah, it was just a case of getting some of these performances in, and then having something to talk about. And now that I've done what I wanted to do, I'm just hoping that people will also be open-minded and not be so close to it. Because it took me a little while after I heard you doing the talk, to put the wheels into motion. I was so, like, what's the word? I don't know what the word is. I was reluctant, as you said, to change, but I thought, I know what he's saying, it makes sense. And then it's unbelievable how much resistance you have in your mind to these things. And when you're hearing something complete opposite, polar opposite to what you think, you know, it's quite challenging for you, you know, for you to kind of accept then that this is the new way forward. But yeah, I'm just glad that I had the sense to be open-minded, listen to the real evidence, and make the changes, because I honestly don't think I could have coped with 20 to 22 hours of training a week doing what I was doing before. You know, I think I must have been iron deficient in the vegan diet as before. The workouts used to drain me, but now, you know, 22 hours of training a week is tough going with work. But I think my recovery is so good eating this way that it's allowed me to get the most out of myself.
Incredible. And that's key, because it isn't just the training, as you say, it's the recovery, isn't it? The recovery is super important, you know?
That's what you said, and people are like, yeah, but he does loads of training, this is why he's getting such good results. Nothing to do with what he's eating. But I'm convinced that not many people could recover from doing 20, 22 hours of training a week, eating crap and eating a lot of things there. I'm convinced it can lead to a lot of injuries as well when you're not getting the right nutrition and fuel into your body. These little injuries crop up, and it's because you're not recovering properly. But having eaten this way, my body repairs and recovers so quickly that I don't miss a session. And pretty much all year, I've missed very few sessions. And I do strongly believe it's down to the diet, to getting the good quality protein and fats in. And yeah, just fueling the workouts properly.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also a contributing factor is removing the anti-nutrients which are preventing your body from healing and repairing. You know, many of the compounds from the plant kingdom contain lectins and phytates, which block the absorption of many essential vitamins, minerals, and cofactors that are involved in healing and repairing. But it's, you know, I think it's incredible, and I think, you know, you are a flagship, and, you know, an inspiration to many people. You know, you've sent lots of other people my way after you know, people have seen, you know, your incredible achievements. Look, talk us through some of your times. Talk us through your 5Ks, 10Ks, and halves and marathons, and bearing in mind that you're not a runner either, so you are a triathlete. So when we compare your times, you get compared to runners, because when you race in a running race, I mean, you either come first or second anyway. But a runner's runner just runs. And when these people come into triathlon, they don't stand a chance, because you can run incredibly fast, but you've got the power on the bike. I mean, your power that you put out on the bike for prolonged periods of time is incredible. And you can put it all together for prolonged periods of time, isn't it?
Yeah.
What sort of times are we talking?
For running, I think 5K PBs in the low 16s. So between 16, around 16:10, something like that. 10K then is about 33. Half marathon I've done in 1:14 or just under that, 1:13 something in Cardiff.
Yeah, on a tough course.
I haven't really done a marathon on its own yet, apart from when I was pacing Fionn, which we were on, we did in 2:57, but that wasn't me racing it was just pacing for her. And yeah, then like the Ironman, my PB is 9:11. Half Ironman, 4:11 as well. And then sprints and stuff you can't really look at, because they're all different distances and stuff like that.
What sort of time are we talking for a marathon during an Ironman, for example?
Well, in Hawaii recently, I was to get sub 9. I needed to run at the time. It was 2:55, which I set off for 2:55 pace, but in 36-degree heat, 90% humidity, it became dangerous. So, as I was telling you earlier, I was seeing black dots in the vision, starting to get tingly hands. So I thought I better rein this in. So I slowed that down. 3:06, 3:07 pace, which I knew would give me the cushion then to still get a Welsh record. Because the 2:55 pace, I think, in a cooler climate, I think it would have been easily achievable for me. But on the day, it wasn't sensible. It was actually dangerous to do that. So, yeah, slowed it down to 3:07. And I was happy with that out there.
Definitely. I mean, look, and just to take stock of this is, 3:07 after a 2.4-mile swim and a 112-mile bike ride, pushing at a high intensity for like 5 hours prior to this, or 6 hours. So, I mean, it's, I'd love to see what your marathon PB would be, on its own, because I think who knows? I mean, it's, I should imagine you'd beat your previous PB on carb. But
Garmin watch is telling me 2:40. That's what it's predicting me, but we know that that's not fully accurate sometimes. But that's what it's got me at.
It's pretty close for you, though. I think.
It usually does kind of equate. So it's got me at a low 16 5K, which is true.
Right. Yeah.
So whether you I've now done one, so I can't really comment on it. But yeah, one day now, maybe.
One day, many goals to come, I think. City, what was that?
Maybe in Manchester now in April.
Yeah, when I'm running, it's, although, I mean, I need a pacer in there, so who knows? Maybe I know that maybe your wife might be running Fionn, so maybe she can pace me, but who knows? Goals. These goals are there to be set, and Mike, talk me through what you would have consumed being, on an average day as a vegan, compared to what you consume on an average day today.
Yeah, okay. Average day before would have been always porridge oats, and quite a lot of oats as well. Like I'd have a big bowl of oats in the morning with vegan protein powder scooped on the top with some peanut butter, maybe honey as well on times. Nuts, chopped nuts for seeds would go in as well. So a lot of that would go in with almond milk, something like that, mixing that together. That would start me off. with a massive glucose spike, starting the morning off. And then we cook a lot of curries, sweet potato curry, stuff like that from scratch, which, there weren't any nasty ingredients in there really, like chemicals or processed foods. It was all natural, and it was all, we knew where the ingredients were coming from. It was quite what would be deemed good food. And then in the night, it'd be something similar again, or there'd be like salads maybe, got all of that as well. And maybe another bowl of oats in between meals to keep the blood sugars ticking over. And then when training, it would be a lot of carbohydrate powders in with the water, and consuming those then to get you through the workouts. And then after your workouts, you'd be consuming more carbs to recover from the workout. So like bananas or stuff like that. A lot of oats and rice cakes, which is completely different to what I do now. So now I don't eat breakfast most of the time. I'll just take a black coffee with BHB, Richard, your BHB, in the coffee, the chocolate flavoured BHB. And then I'm off to the pool and I'll swim for an hour. And say if it's a Wednesday, I'll meet you for a track workout straight after that without eating, no food at all. Straight into the track workout, high intensity as well. So don't need carbs for that. Get a good track session out, and then for about an hour sometimes, isn't it? And then we'll go for breakfast then, where it'll be bacon, sausage, eggs, something like that. Not every day we don't have that, but that's what we have on a Wednesday. And I eat such big meals then that the protein and fat that I consume will fill me up, and I won't need to eat until the evening, and I won't be snacking, I won't be looking for food. And in the evening then, most of the days of the week, it'll be some sort of red meat then. So usually steak or mince. And what else? Yeah, I was having white rice with the steak and vegetables as well, but I've recently taken the white rice out because I'm not doing a crazy amount of training, and I'm actually, I don't feel like I need it. So it's just pretty much red meat on its own. And if I have minced meat with, crushed up into burgers, I'll have some cheese with it. And I will have vegetables now and again, a bit of kale, a bit of broccoli, because Fiona eats a lot of vegetables as well. So if she's doing food, I'll just have what she's having. But, I'll keep the carbs very low. And then after the evening meal, it'll be a bit of Greek yogurt, sometimes with frozen berries as well. And a little bit of protein powder perhaps as well. So that's pretty much what I have in a day. And I will get some oily fish in as well, so mackerel, salmon, eat a lot of that as well. But that kind of structure of not really having breakfast until I've done my training in the morning is what works for me. And then following that with a big hit of protein or fat.
Yeah.
Oh, a lot of eggs.
Eggs.
Quite a lot of eggs.
Yeah, love your eggs, which is incredible.
Yeah, I love it.
What about supplementation? You mentioned the BHB, which is exogenous ketones, isn't it? Which is what I've got in there, but in a different form. I mean, these can help us with workouts, but they also help with recovery. So what I do after like training with you on a Wednesday, I'll take the exogenous ketones because this will increase EPO, which is the kidney's ability to make more red blood cells, but it can help with recovery and inflammation also. For me, it's an integral part of my recovery. And the electrolytes, like I consume lots of electrolytes. Do you use many of the electrolytes and other exogenous ketones and MCTs?
Yeah, so we now, whereas I was used to using carbohydrates and all that crap when I was training, just keto pro electrolytes. So I consume quite a lot of them because when you're doing these indoor workouts, you're sweating a lot, so you're losing a lot of the electrolytes in your sweat. So it'll be keto pro, bit of unflavored electrolytes and a little bit of flavor just to give it a nice taste, because it is quite tough to drink unflavored electrolytes on its own. Some people can, but I might get it one day.
Level 5.
Yeah. So a little bit of the flavored one, just to give it that bit of a nice taste. And then if it's a long session, then it'll be MCT powder, medium chain triglycerides, scooped in a bottle as well. And as you just said, after workouts, I'll try and consume some BHB, some ketones to help with the recovery. And I also have the BHB in a hot drink in the night before bed. So with some cacao, some BHB, and a little bit of MCT powder again before bed. So you're setting the recovery off then just to go to bed. So the next day you can wake up and go again.
Yeah, which you do.
Yeah, every day you're hitting it early. Well, when I was training for Kona, I was up hitting it early in the pool, doing the same routine, getting a good night's sleep in after consuming these products for recovery, start the process again. But because I was doing this regularly, using the products to recover, eating good quality protein, good quality fats, just allows the body to recover. But it's a completely different world to what I was doing before, and I'm just improving all the time. So something is working.
Yeah, something's definitely working. And Mike, I think what you've achieved, this year alone is absolutely incredible. And yeah, let's see what next year holds, because I think you're going to achieve some incredible things there. Look, for the listeners, what are your top tips if somebody's thinking of gravitated into a low carb way of living or ketogenic way of living for health, well-being, or athletic performance? What would your words of wisdom be if they're on the fence, teetering as to whether to jump in or not?
I would just say that, like, be open and speak to people. People like me and you, we want to help other people to get good results. It's not like, carb versus no carb. We need to like come together. And if you do want advice about something, or you're interested in it, just drop me a message or drop you a message. You'd be more than welcome to help people. And it's quite easy. So, and there isn't a lot of information out there, so it is quite hard when you're going into it to know what you're doing and how you're supposed to feel. And given I've just gone through it myself, I know how the body's supposed to feel when you're making these changes and how to do it best. So, yeah, when you're starting this journey off, just drop someone a message who's already doing it, because it is a bit confusing, and you will have people in this year saying one thing and in this year saying another thing. So just try to ease your way into it. You can either go all in straight off the bat, or you can take your time and sort of gradually go into it, which is what I did. But I know some people suit doing it that way better, but other people would rather just go cold turkey, go straight into it. But yeah, and like, if your performance does dip, don't just go, it doesn't work, because you've got to go through that period of getting it a little bit worse before you get better. Which is what I don't think a lot of people really struggle with that. But you just got to have trust in the process. And if you've seen someone get results from it, it obviously does work. So you just need to trust the process and speak to as many people. Jump on Richard's podcast to listen and get information. You can ask questions on that as well. And yeah, just get as much information as you can off people who are already doing it. Yeah, that's my advice.
Awesome. Fantastic stuff. Look, I think there's so many things that we could get into now. But we'll park these things for another time, because what I wanted to get into is, how to gravitate slowly in regards to diet and the type of things that you would do in regards to training. So what your training regime is, your training routine, your diet on a daily basis for this theme. So, as you said before, the blueprint for a carb athlete for race day is there, but there isn't one for us, for endurance athletes. So I think that in itself would make a fantastic podcast when we can get into your prep and build up towards a race. And race day fueling, I think would be incredible. Yeah. So if you're up for that, we'll get you back on another time.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we'll episode number 2.
Yeah, come
definite. Mike, absolute pleasure, my man. Obviously, you're a chiropractor in Neath in South Wales. Where can people find you if they want to come and see you for that?
Yeah, we're in Britain Ferry, so we've got social pages. NPT Chiropractor.
Perfect.
Chiropractic Clinic. Search online, you'll be able to find us. If you need any help with that as well.
Brilliant, and we'll pop those links below. Mikey, my man, absolute pleasure. Thanks again for coming on. Take care, and I will see you soon.
Cheers, Rich.